The sky over the planet of Viridia was dark and heavy. Smoke rose from broken buildings, and the wind carried the sharp smell of burned metal. Kiran, a boy of 12, ran through the ruined streets with his heart pounding. He had never seen a city like this before. Towers that once reached the sky now lay in pieces, and the ground was littered with debris from the recent battle. His eyes searched desperately for any sign of life. Kiran had come to the city for a simple task. He was supposed to collect supplies for his small village, supplies that could help people survive another harsh season. But when he arrived, he found the city empty and silent. His gut told him something terrible had happened. As he turned a corner, he heard a faint cry. It was soft, almost like a whisper carried by the wind, but it was clear enough to make his heart stop. Someone was calling for help. He followed the sound carefully, stepping over broken walls and shattered glass. There, in the shadows of a collapsed building, he saw her. A small figure, no taller than a child, huddled among the rubble. Her skin shimmered faintly under the dim sunlight, and her large eyes looked at him with fear. Kiran's chest tightened. He had never seen anyone like her before. She was not human, but she had a presence that felt familiar, almost like she belonged in the world he knew. "Are you okay?" Kiran asked, his voice shaking but gentle. The girl did not speak. She only stared at him, trembling. Kiran crouched down to her level, keeping his hands visible so she would not be afraid. Slowly, she lifted one hand, her fingers long and delicate. Her movements were cautious but deliberate, as if she wanted to trust him but was unsure. "My name is Kiran," he said softly. "I will help you. Don't be afraid." The girl's eyes widened. For a moment, Kiran thought she might run, but she did not. Instead, she nodded slightly and allowed him to approach. He could see dirt on her skin, and her clothes were torn. She had clearly been hiding for a long time. Kiran reached out his hand. "Come with me. I will take you somewhere safe." It took some effort, but Kiran managed to lift her gently into his arms. She was surprisingly light, almost like she weighed nothing at all. As he carried her, she clung to him instinctively, her head resting against his shoulder. Kiran felt a strange warmth in his chest. He had never felt responsible for anyone like this before, but now, in that moment, he knew he would do everything to protect her. The journey to safety was not easy. The city was unstable, and every step could bring falling debris or hidden dangers. Kiran moved carefully, scanning the ruined streets and ruined buildings. Occasionally, he heard distant sounds of conflict, the echoes of battles that had already passed. He avoided the main roads, taking narrow alleys and abandoned tunnels to avoid danger. All the while, the girl remained quiet, watching him with her large, intelligent eyes. Kiran wondered what kind of life she had led before he found her. Finally, after hours of walking, Kiran reached the outskirts of the city. Here, the destruction was less severe. Trees still grew among the rubble, and small streams of clear water ran along the paths. He set the girl down gently on the grass. She looked around, her eyes wide with wonder. Kiran smiled faintly. "We are safe here," he said. "You can rest." The girl took a few steps, her movements cautious but curious. She bent down to touch the grass and the flowers that grew among the ruins. Kiran watched her closely, amazed by how careful she was, how every movement seemed full of thought. He realized she was not just a child, she was different, extraordinary. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of red and orange, Kiran built a small shelter using fallen branches and metal sheets he found nearby. He shared the small amount of food he had with her. She ate slowly, watching him carefully, but eventually, she seemed to relax. Kiran felt a sense of relief. For the first time since he had found her, he believed she might survive the night. That evening, under the soft light of the stars, Kiran sat beside her and asked, "What is your name?" The girl hesitated. Then, softly, almost as if testing the sound, she said, "Lyra." Kiran repeated it gently. "Lyra. That is a beautiful name." She looked at him, and for the first time, she smiled. It was a small smile, but it carried a weight of trust and relief. Kiran felt his heart lift. He knew, in that moment, that he had not only saved her body but had begun to protect something much greater, her spirit. Days turned into weeks. Kiran and Lyra stayed hidden on the outskirts of the city, learning to survive together. Kiran taught her how to find clean water, how to collect edible plants, and how to avoid dangerous areas. Lyra, in return, showed Kiran things he had never seen before. She could sense changes in the environment, predict weather shifts, and even understand the behavior of animals in ways that seemed almost magical. Kiran was amazed by her abilities, but he never treated her differently. She was a friend, a companion, and someone he had promised to protect. One night, as they watched the stars from the safety of their shelter, Lyra spoke for the first time about her past. "My home, it is gone," she said softly. "They came and took everything." Kiran nodded. He did not need her to explain further. He understood the pain of losing everything familiar. "We will build something new," he said firmly. "Together." Lyra looked at him, her eyes reflecting the starlight. In that moment, Kiran realized something profound. This girl, small and fragile at first, had a strength that could not be measured by her size. He had saved her life, but in many ways, she had already begun to save his. The bond between them grew stronger with every passing day. Kiran knew that the world outside was dangerous and unpredictable, but as long as he had Lyra by his side, he felt hope. And Lyra, for her part, had found in Kiran someone she could trust completely, someone who had given her a second chance at life. The first part of their story ended with the promise of new beginnings. In a ruined city, under a sky filled with stars, a human boy and an alien girl began a journey that would change both of their lives forever. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: they would face it together, and nothing could break the bond that had formed between them. Years passed, and the small alien girl Kiran had rescued grew into a strong and intelligent young woman. Her name, Lyra, had become familiar in the quiet forests and valleys where they lived. Kiran, now a young man, continued to care for her as he had promised. Together, they had built a life away from the dangers of the ruined city, creating a home from wood, metal, and stone. The forest around them became a sanctuary, filled with life and quiet strength. Lyra learned quickly. Every day, she absorbed knowledge from Kiran and from the world around her. She discovered the ways of human life, how to hunt, gather, and prepare food. But she also shared her own unique abilities. She could sense changes in the wind, predict the weather, and understand the language of animals. Kiran watched her with pride and wonder. He realized that the child he had once saved was no longer fragile. She was extraordinary. Their days were filled with learning and adventure. Kiran taught Lyra how to repair tools and build small machines from the scraps they found. She learned to read and write, though her understanding went far beyond human knowledge. Lyra could calculate distances, predict outcomes, and solve problems with ease. Sometimes, Kiran would give her puzzles or tasks, and she would solve them in ways he had never imagined. It amazed him, but it also reminded him that she had a destiny greater than their quiet life in the forest. Despite her abilities, Lyra remained humble and kind. She never used her skills to show power over Kiran or others. Instead, she learned to help, to heal, and to protect. Animals approached her without fear, and even the wild plants seemed to flourish in her presence. Kiran often said that the forest had accepted her as its own, and he knew in his heart that her strength was meant for more than survival. Their bond deepened with each passing year. They shared stories under the stars, laughed at small accidents, and comforted each other during difficult times. Kiran often thought about the promise he had made long ago, to protect her. But over time, he realized that Lyra also protected him in ways he could not always understand. Her presence gave him courage, clarity, and hope. Together, they had become a team, a pair whose strengths complemented each other perfectly. One morning, as sunlight filtered through the trees, Lyra sat beside a small stream and observed the water flowing over smooth stones. Kiran joined her, carrying a basket of food they had gathered. "Do you ever wonder about your home?" Kiran asked gently. Lyra looked at him, her eyes reflecting the light of the sun. "I remember little," she said. "But I know it was beautiful. My people were strong, and my home was filled with life. I want to see it again, but I am afraid of what remains." Kiran nodded. "We will go one day," he said. "When the time is right, we will find your people and see your home. But for now, we have each other. And this forest can keep us safe." Lyra smiled. There was trust and understanding in that smile. Kiran knew that no matter what happened in the future, they would face it together. As the seasons changed, their lives were not without challenges. Wild animals sometimes threatened their safety, and storms could destroy the shelters they built. Yet, through every obstacle, Lyra showed courage and intelligence. She could plan ahead, foresee danger, and act quickly. Kiran admired her more with each passing day. She was not just a child he had saved, she was a partner, a friend, and someone whose wisdom he came to rely on deeply. One evening, while the sky turned shades of pink and purple, Kiran and Lyra explored a nearby valley. They discovered ancient ruins, buildings made from materials unknown to Kiran, covered in symbols and carvings that glowed faintly. Lyra touched the markings and gasped. "These are my people's designs," she said softly. "I have seen them in my memories. This place is important." Kiran looked around, amazed by the scale and beauty of the ruins. "Then we must learn everything about it," he said. "Maybe it will tell us how to find your home, your people." Lyra nodded. For the first time, a spark of determination lit her eyes. Kiran noticed how she stood taller, how her presence seemed to command attention even from the silent ruins. He realized then that she was not meant to stay hidden forever. She had a destiny that reached beyond the forest, beyond the planet, beyond anything he had imagined. As the years continued, Kiran and Lyra refined their skills. Kiran became more skilled with machines and devices, while Lyra's abilities grew even stronger. She could move through the forest silently, understand the weather, and sense changes in the environment faster than any human. Kiran sometimes joked that she could speak to the planet itself. Lyra only laughed, but Kiran knew she was extraordinary in every sense of the word. Despite the peaceful life they had built, Kiran knew that the world outside the forest was changing. Other humans were exploring the planet again, and rumors of advanced technology and alien life began to circulate. Kiran worried about the dangers this could bring to Lyra. He feared that if anyone discovered her, they would try to control her, use her abilities for their own gain. He made a silent promise to stay vigilant, to continue protecting her no matter what. Lyra, however, was not afraid. She understood the risks but felt a responsibility to learn more about her past and her people. She began to ask questions about the stars, about planets beyond Viridia, and about the history of her species. Kiran answered as best as he could, but he often felt the limits of his knowledge. Still, he admired her curiosity and determination. He knew that one day, she would leave the forest, and when that time came, she would face challenges with the courage and intelligence he had always seen in her. One clear night, as the stars sparkled above them, Lyra spoke to Kiran about her dreams. "I want to see my people again," she said. "I want to understand who I am and where I belong. I know you will come with me, but I must do this. It is my destiny." Kiran held her hand gently. "I will always be with you," he said. "No matter where you go, no matter what happens, I will not let anyone harm you. You are my responsibility, and my friend, and I will never forget the promise I made." Lyra smiled, and for a moment, the forest seemed to hold its breath. The bond between them had grown unbreakable. Kiran realized that saving her years ago had not only changed her life but had shaped his own. He had learned courage, compassion, and hope from her, just as she had learned survival, trust, and strength from him. Their peaceful life continued, but the call of the stars and the memory of her lost home grew stronger in Lyra. She began to prepare herself, learning to navigate and communicate with the universe beyond Viridia. Kiran assisted her, building devices, teaching her about human technology, and helping her understand the complexity of the world beyond the forest. By the time Lyra reached adulthood, she was not just the girl Kiran had saved. She was a leader in the making, a mind of unmatched brilliance, and a spirit of compassion and courage. Kiran looked at her with pride, knowing that the promise he had made as a boy had led to this moment. He had saved her life, but she had grown into someone who could save worlds. The forest around them remained their sanctuary, a place where the past and present met. But beyond it, a greater adventure awaited. Lyra's destiny called, and Kiran knew that the journey ahead would test everything they had learned. Together, they were ready to face the unknown. The bond between them, forged through years of trust and shared struggle, was stronger than anything the universe could challenge. And so, under the quiet stars of Viridia, Kiran and Lyra prepared for a future that would take them far beyond the forest, far beyond the planet, and into the greater universe where her people awaited and where destiny called them both. The forest had been their home for many years, but both Kiran and Lyra knew it could not last forever. Change had already begun to stir in the world beyond. Traders, explorers, and settlers had started moving across Viridia again. Rumors of advanced technology hidden in ruins spread across the human colonies. Strange stories of alien survivors whispered in the dark corners of settlements. Kiran listened to these stories with concern, for he knew they were not only rumors. He knew Lyra was proof that her people had survived. One evening, Kiran and Lyra sat by the fire in their shelter. The flames flickered against the walls, casting shadows that danced like memories of their past. Lyra's expression was calm, but her eyes carried the weight of thought. "Kiran," she said quietly, "I cannot stay hidden any longer. I feel it here." She placed her hand on her chest. "My people are calling to me. Somewhere out there, they are waiting. I must find them." Kiran looked at her, the firelight reflecting in his eyes. He had always known this moment would come, Yet hearing her speak it aloud made his heart heavy. "You are right," he said after a pause. "This forest was never meant to hold you forever. You are more than this place. But finding your people will not be easy. There will be danger." Lyra smiled softly. "I have faced danger before. And I will not face it alone. You will be with me." Kiran nodded. He had promised long ago to protect her, and he would keep that promise no matter where it led. The next weeks were filled with preparation. Kiran gathered supplies, tools, and maps he had collected from traders. He repaired an old transport ship they had found years earlier, hidden in the ruins of the valley. The ship was battered and weak, but with patience and skill, he restored it to working condition. Lyra helped him, learning quickly, her hands steady and her mind sharp. Finally, the day arrived. The ship lifted from the ground with a low hum, carrying them away from the only home they had ever known together. Kiran piloted carefully, while Lyra gazed out at the endless stars. For the first time in her life, she felt a connection deep inside her, as if the universe itself welcomed her return. They traveled from colony to colony, searching for signs of her people. At first, they found only whispers, old records, faded symbols, fragments of stories told by travelers. Many humans dismissed these as myths, but Lyra knew the truth. With each discovery, her determination grew stronger. On a distant mining colony, they found the first real clue. An old man, a historian of lost civilizations, listened to Lyra's questions with great interest. His eyes widened when she showed him the symbols from the ruins on Viridia. "These markings," he said slowly, "belong to the astral kin. A noble people, thought to be gone. But I have heard they live still, hidden far beyond the outer stars. Their homeworld is said to be Arinder, a place of twin suns and silver seas." Lyra's heart raced. She knew at once that this was the place calling to her. She thanked the man, and Kiran promised to repay his kindness. Their journey to Arinder was long and filled with challenges. They crossed dangerous sectors of space, avoiding pirates and storms of cosmic energy. More than once, their ship nearly failed, but Kiran's steady hands and Lyra's quick mind saved them each time. Through it all, their bond grew stronger. They were not just travelers now. They were companions bound by purpose. At last, after many weeks, they reached a system with twin suns shining brilliantly. The planet before them was unlike anything they had ever seen. Vast oceans sparkled with silver light, and great cities rose along the shores, shining with towers of crystal and metal. Ships moved gracefully in the sky, and energy shimmered in patterns that seemed alive. Lyra's breath caught in her throat. "This is it," she whispered. "This is my home." As they approached, a group of sleek alien ships surrounded them. Voices filled their communication system, speaking in a language Kiran could not understand. But Lyra closed her eyes and listened. Slowly, she began to answer in the same tongue. The ships paused, and then their tone changed. They guided Kiran and Lyra safely to the surface. On the ground, they were greeted by a group of tall figures with luminous eyes. They looked at Lyra with awe, as if recognizing something within her. One of them stepped forward. "You carry the mark of the lost," he said in a deep, resonant voice. "You are one of us." Lyra nodded. "I am Lyra. I was saved by a human when I was a child. I have come to return, to find my place among you." The aliens led them into a grand hall filled with light and sound. There, Lyra learned the truth. Her people, the astral kin, had survived the destruction of their old worlds. They had rebuilt on Arinder, but they had lost many children in the chaos of the past wars. Lyra had been one of those children, thought lost forever. Her return was seen as a miracle, a sign of hope for her people. Over the weeks that followed, Lyra was welcomed into her people's society. They recognized her intelligence, her strength, and her compassion. She quickly earned their respect, not because of her heritage alone, but because of the wisdom she had gained from her years with Kiran. She spoke often of humans, of their resilience and courage, and she insisted that her bond with Kiran was proof that unity between species was possible. Kiran, though proud, felt out of place at times. The astral kin were advanced beyond anything he had ever known. Their cities gleamed with technology that defied human understanding. Yet, despite this, many of them treated him with respect because of Lyra. They saw him as the one who had protected her, the one who had ensured her survival. One evening, Lyra stood on a balcony overlooking the silver seas. Kiran joined her, the twin suns casting golden light across the waves. "You belong here," Kiran said softly. "This is your home, your people." Lyra turned to him, her eyes steady. "I may belong here, but I would not be here without you. You are as much a part of this as I am. You saved me, you taught me, and you gave me the strength to stand here today. I will never forget that." Kiran felt a warmth in his chest. He had always known she was destined for something greater, but seeing it with his own eyes filled him with pride. Soon after, a council of leaders approached Lyra. They believed she carried the spirit of leadership, a presence that could unite their people in a time of uncertainty. They asked her to step forward, to guide them as their queen. Lyra hesitated at first, humbled by the weight of responsibility. But when she looked at Kiran, she found courage in his quiet strength. "I will lead," she said firmly. "Not for power, but for unity. For my people, and for the bond that proves different worlds can stand together." The council bowed, and the decision was made. Lyra would rise as their queen. As the announcement spread across Arinder, celebrations filled the cities. The astral kin welcomed her with open hearts, their songs rising into the skies. Kiran stood beside her, watching as she embraced her destiny. He knew the journey was far from over. Challenges would come, enemies would rise, and the universe would test them both. But for now, he felt peace. The child he had once carried through the ruins of a broken city now stood before him as a queen, radiant and strong. Their bond had not weakened with time, it had only grown deeper. And as the suns of Arinder set, casting the world in golden light, Kiran and Lyra looked toward the future, ready to face whatever lay ahead. The day Lyra was crowned queen of the astral kin was unlike anything Kiran had ever seen. The crystal towers of Arinder shone brighter than usual, reflecting the twin suns in dazzling colors. Crowds filled the great plazas, their voices rising in songs that carried both joy and hope. Lyra stood tall before her people, dressed in silver and blue, her eyes calm but strong. Kiran watched her from a distance, proud yet uncertain of his own place in this new world. He had seen her grow from a frightened child into a wise woman, but now she stood as a leader of an entire people. Though she was surrounded by advisors, soldiers, and nobles, her gaze often found Kiran in the crowd. That silent connection reminded him that, no matter how much the world changed, their bond would remain. Yet, not everyone welcomed her rise to power. Hidden among the voices of celebration were whispers of doubt. Some members of the council questioned her loyalty, pointing to her years spent with humans. Others feared her bond with Kiran, worrying that human influence might weaken her rule. And beyond Arinder, rival worlds watched carefully, seeing the rise of a new queen as both a threat and an opportunity. It did not take long for the first challenge to appear. Reports came of attacks on astral kin ships traveling through the border regions. Trade vessels vanished, and colonies went silent. Evidence suggested sabotage, but no clear enemy revealed themselves. Lyra called a council meeting in the Great Hall, with Kiran seated at her side as her trusted advisor. "We cannot ignore these attacks," one counselor declared, his voice sharp. "Our enemies see your rise as weakness. We must strike first." Another counselor shook her head. "We must be careful. A war now could destroy all we have rebuilt." Lyra listened in silence, her expression thoughtful. When the arguments quieted, she spoke with calm authority. "We will not rush into war. But neither will we stand idle while our people are threatened. We will investigate, and we will uncover the truth. Fear cannot guide us, only wisdom." Her words carried weight, but Kiran noticed the doubt in some faces. As the council dismissed, Lyra turned to him. "What do you think?" she asked softly. Kiran leaned closer. "I think you are right to be careful. Whoever is behind this wants you to act without thinking. They want you to look reckless. We should gather proof before making any move." Lyra nodded. "Then you will help me. Together, we will find the truth." Over the following weeks, Kiran and Lyra worked side by side to uncover the source of the attacks. Kiran used his skills as an engineer to study damaged ships, tracing the sabotage back to advanced technology not commonly used by the astral kin. Lyra used her influence to question traders, travelers, and distant governors. Slowly, a pattern emerged. The attacks were not random, they were organized, planned by a rival faction of astral kin who opposed Lyra's rule. One evening, in the quiet of the palace, Lyra sat with Kiran in the council chamber. The maps and data they had collected glowed on the table before them. "It is my own people," Lyra said quietly. "Not outsiders. They wish to remove me before I am strong enough to resist." Kiran frowned. "That means they fear you. And people only fear what they cannot control." She looked at him, her eyes steady. "And you? Do you fear me?" Kiran shook his head. "No, I trust you. That is something they will never understand. They see only power and control. I see the child I saved, the friend I grew with, the woman who now leads with wisdom. I fear nothing, because I know who you are." Her expression softened, and for a moment, the weight of her crown seemed lighter. "Then we must face this together. If they seek to test me, I will show them that loyalty is my strength, not my weakness." Soon, word spread that one of the border colonies had fallen silent. Lyra decided to lead a mission herself, despite the protests of the council. She insisted that a true queen must stand with her people, not hide behind walls. Kiran joined her, unwilling to leave her side. The journey to the colony was tense. Their ship moved through dark space, every shadow a possible enemy. When they arrived, the colony was in ruins, much like the city where Kiran had first found Lyra years ago. Buildings burned, and the air was filled with the smell of smoke and metal. Survivors spoke of attackers who moved like shadows, using weapons too precise to be raiders. As they explored the ruins, an ambush struck. Ships rose from the horizon, weapons firing. Lyra's guards rushed to protect her, but she stood firm, her eyes glowing with determination. Kiran grabbed her arm, pulling her toward cover, but she refused to retreat. "This is what they want," she said fiercely. "They want me to run. But I will not." With calm precision, she gave commands to her soldiers, guiding them into formation. Kiran supported her, using his knowledge of machines to disable enemy weapons and create traps. Together, they turned the tide of the battle. When the attackers finally retreated, leaving their ships scattered across the sky, Lyra's people cheered. But Lyra knew the battle was only the beginning. Captured enemies revealed the truth: members of the council had secretly supported the attacks, believing Lyra's rule would bring weakness. They hoped to replace her with someone more loyal to their own interests. When the council reconvened, the evidence was laid bare. Those who had plotted against her were removed, and the people saw Lyra's strength not just as a queen, but as a leader who faced danger head-on. Still, not all doubts vanished. Some continued to whisper, questioning her bond with Kiran. One counselor asked openly, "Why do you keep him at your side? He is human, not astral kin. His presence divides us." Lyra stood, her voice steady and strong. "Kiran saved me when I was a child. He taught me courage, loyalty, and wisdom. Without him, I would not stand here today. His humanity does not divide us, it reminds us that unity is possible. If you doubt his place, then you doubt me. And I will not allow that." The hall fell silent. For the first time, even her strongest critics had no answer. Kiran felt a surge of pride, though he said nothing. Lyra had spoken not only as a queen but as the friend he had always known. In the months that followed, the threats did not vanish, but Lyra grew stronger. She learned to balance trust with caution, kindness with firmness. Kiran remained by her side, advising her when others doubted her. Together, they faced spies, saboteurs, and secret plots. Each trial tested their loyalty, but each time, they emerged stronger. One night, as the silver seas shimmered under the light of the twin moons, Kiran and Lyra stood on the balcony once more. The air was cool, and the stars stretched endlessly above them. "You have faced enemies from within and without," Kiran said softly. "And you have stood strong." Lyra looked at him, her eyes filled with quiet strength. "Not alone. Never alone. Every test I faced, you were there. That is why I will endure. That is why I will lead." Kiran nodded. "Then the universe should be ready. Because together, there is nothing we cannot overcome." The bond between them had been tested, but it had not broken. Instead, it had become unshakable, a force that neither enemies nor doubts could destroy. And though greater challenges lay ahead, both knew that loyalty, once proven, could withstand the trials of any world. The palace of Arinder stood glowing beneath the twin suns as dawn broke across the silver seas. For many months, Queen Lyra had guided her people through shadows of betrayal and storms of doubt. Each trial made her rule stronger, and each victory won the respect of her subjects. Yet deep within her heart, she knew the greatest challenge still lay ahead. The whispers of division within the council had been silenced, but outside the borders of astral kin space, enemies watched carefully. Rumors spread of a great coalition forming, one that united rival worlds who feared the rise of the young queen. These forces, led by a warlord named Varos, prepared for war unlike any before. His armies stretched across distant systems, and his fleets filled the dark between stars. He declared that the astral kin must bow or be destroyed. When the message reached Arinder, the council trembled. Some begged for surrender. Others cried for war. Lyra stood silent, her eyes fixed on the stars beyond the palace windows. She did not speak until the room fell quiet. "Fear will not guide us," she said firmly. "We will not kneel. But neither will we fight blindly. We will stand with courage, and we will call upon allies. For unity, not fear, is our strength. Her words spread beyond the walls of the palace. Across cities and colonies, her people rallied. Where once they doubted, now they believed. And at her side, as always, stood Kiran. He prepared the fleets, improved their defenses, and shared strategies drawn from his human experience. To him, this war was not just for the astral kin, it was a chance to prove that humanity's courage and loyalty could change the fate of galaxies. The call for allies before the first battle could begin, Lyra sent envoys to neighboring worlds. Some worlds had once been enemies, others indifferent. But one by one, they listened to her message. She spoke not of conquest, but of unity, reminding them that Varos threatened not just astral kin, but all free peoples. Still, many leaders hesitated. They doubted whether the astral kin could truly be trusted, or whether Lyra was strong enough to lead. At one council, a ruler sneered, "Why should we follow you, young queen? You are but a child who rose by chance. What strength do you truly hold?" Before Lyra could answer, Kiran stepped forward. His voice rang clear. "I once found her in ruins, when all hope seemed lost. She has faced betrayal, ambush, and doubt, yet she stands unbroken. If you cannot see her strength, then you see nothing. Follow her, and you will find victory. Deny her, and you will face the warlord's chains alone." The hall grew silent. The rulers saw not only the queen but the human who stood beside her, unwavering. At last, one leader rose. "If even a human, with no blood ties to your people, trusts you so fully, then perhaps so should we." Thus, one world after another joined her cause. Though not all answered, enough did. A coalition began to form, fragile but real. For the first time in generations, rivals set aside differences for survival. Preparing for war, the fleets of Arinder filled the skies. Great ships with crystal cores hovered beside human-designed vessels upgraded with astral kin technology. Kiran oversaw their coordination, blending tactics from Earth with the power of his adopted world. Soldiers trained day and night, while engineers reinforced defenses on key colonies. Yet, Lyra refused to prepare only for battle. She visited the training grounds, speaking with soldiers directly. She walked among the workers, thanking them for their service. To her people, she was not a distant queen, but a leader who shared their burdens. That closeness gave them hope stronger than any weapon. One night, as the coalition gathered, Kiran found her standing alone on a balcony, the stars reflected in her eyes. "Do you ever doubt yourself?" he asked quietly. Lyra turned to him. "Every day. But doubt does not make me weak. It reminds me to listen, to think, to remember who I serve." "And you? Do you ever doubt?" Kiran smiled faintly. "Not you. Never you." Their silence after that was filled not with fear, but with trust. The first clash the warlord Varos struck sooner than expected. His fleets appeared at the border colonies, dark ships moving like shadows through space. Their weapons burned with unnatural energy, tearing through defenses. Worlds cried for aid, and Lyra answered. She led the first fleet herself, standing on the command bridge of the flagship. Kiran stood beside her, guiding strategies, directing engineers, and coordinating human-designed shields. The battle was fierce, the sky alive with fire and light. At first, the coalition struggled. Varos's fleets were larger and more ruthless, his commanders merciless. But Lyra refused to give ground. She commanded with calm strength, moving ships into positions that seemed impossible, turning weakness into advantage. Kiran's quick thinking allowed their shields to endure where they should have failed. Hours stretched into a day. At last, the enemy retreated, leaving wreckage behind. The coalition had survived the first clash, though at great cost. Cheers rose across the fleet, but Lyra did not celebrate. She knew this was only the beginning. The warlord's challenge angered by defeat, Varos sent a message broadcast across the stars. His towering figure appeared on every screen, his voice thunderous. You hide behind allies, little queen. You claim strength, yet you fear to face me. I will come for you, and when I do, your people will kneel or burn. The threat spread fear, but Lyra did not flinch. She gathered her council, allies, and Kiran. He wishes to break us with fear, she said. But we will meet him, not as victims, but as one united force. If he seeks to test us, then he will see our true strength. Kiran added, he thinks we are divided. That is his mistake. We will show him that unity is stronger than fear. The final battle. The coalition gathered all its fleets for the final stand. The battle took place near the crystal fields of Orion, a system whose glowing rings shimmered like fire in the dark. Varos arrived with an armada greater than any seen before. His ships blotted out the stars, weapons charging with deadly power. The clash shook the heavens. Ships started and collided, beams of energy tearing across space. Explosions lit the rings of Orion like storms of fire. For every enemy ship destroyed, more appeared. Yet the coalition fought with fierce determination. On the flagship, Lyra stood like a pillar of light. Her commands guided the fleet through chaos, each order saving lives. Kiran worked beside her, his hands racing across controls, his mind calculating strategies faster than machines. Together, they turned hopeless moments into narrow victories. But the warlord himself entered the field, his massive flagship dwarfing all others. Its weapons tore through defenses, striking fear into even the bravest hearts. For a moment, it seemed the coalition would fall. Lyra did not hesitate. She ordered her ship forward, straight toward the warlord's flagship. The council screamed in protest, but she silenced them. A queen does not hide. If he seeks me, then let him face me. Kiran gripped her arm. Then I face him with you. The flagship charged into the heart of the storm. Enemy fire rained down, but shields held under Kiran's guidance. They reached striking distance, and with one final command, Lyra unleashed the combined power of their crystal core and human-designed weapons. The blast tore through the warlord's ship, breaking its dark heart. Across the battlefield, enemy fleets faltered. Their leader was gone, their unity shattered. The coalition pressed forward, driving them into retreat. The war was won. Aftermath of victory. The celebrations that followed echoed across worlds. Fires of war gave way to lights of peace. The coalition, once fragile, now stood strong. Rivals became allies, and old wounds began to heal. Lyra returned to Arinder, not as a queen of one people, but as a leader of many. Her name carried across the stars as a symbol of unity. And always, beside her, stood Kiran, the human who proved that courage and loyalty were stronger than fear and division. One evening, after the celebrations ended, they stood again on the balcony overlooking the silver seas. The twin moons shone above, and the world seemed calm at last. You have done it, Kiran said softly. You turned doubt into faith, fear into unity. The galaxy will remember your name. Lyra looked at him, her voice gentle. Not mine alone. Without you, I would not have stood this far. You are the proof that humanity and astral kin together can do more than survive. We can lead. He smiled, watching the stars. Then let this be only the beginning. They stood in silence, the weight of war behind them and the promise of peace before them. The bond that had begun in ruins had grown into something unshakable. Together, they had triumphed, and together, they would shape the future. For in the end, it was not only strength or power that won the war. It was loyalty, trust, and unity, the true spirit of humanity shining among the stars.